One.
Fast looks.
Hi, everybody. I'm Dana Brooks of Fasig Brooks, and welcome back to the EmPower Hour by Fasig Brooks, brought to you through the EmPower plant. I want to welcome everybody to this beautiful Thursday. We're going to cover a few things this week. First, I want to introduce the people who are on the panel, and then we'll talk about, of course, the drink of the week, cover the most important things, and then we'll get into the topics we're going to cover. So I'm Dana Brooks. I'm one of the shareholders here at Fasig Brooks. We are a personal injury law firm. We help people who've been injured in any kind of accident. Usually it's a car crash, motorcycle, trucking accident, slip and fall, or it could be, unfortunately, sometimes people get assaulted in other people's property, or they're a victim of a defective product, and we help those people. So I'm joined today by members of our EmPower plant, EmPower Hour team. We have Lori Finn. She is our marketing director. She always has an interesting perspective because she's doing the same thing we're all trying to do, which is be professionals, be parents, be present, and that's not always easy. So I love hearing her perspective. We have Rose Caswick, one of my law partners. Rose is one of probably on the younger end of our partners that we have here, and she's got a unique perspective she brings, and I like to hear what her experiences are. They're often a good bit different than mine, so I learn something every time I hear from Rose. I have Kimmy Hogan here today. Kimmy is another one of my law partners. She helps people who are injured in those types of accidents like I talked about, and she's married to another attorney professional, and they have 2 young children. So she's got specific challenges here, especially during COVID. And then we'll be joined later today by my other female law partner, Carrie Roan. And Carrie is married to an attorney also and has 2 sons that she's raising, but they're at a different developmental stage, that they're older. But we have a lot of things that are similar among us as women, and then we have a lot of things that are a little bit different. So we hope to cover a lot. We hope to hear from you all. We really enjoy the input that everybody is giving us on the EmPower plant. This has been a really good week, and some of the behavior I've seen dovetails into one of the things we're going to talk about later, which is civility. I've seen a lot of that on our EmPower plant, and I'm so proud of the way everybody's engaged. 1,500 people being mutually respectful, even though they have different viewpoints and values. I'm really proud of this thing that we created here, and I think everybody should give themselves a hand for that. So first things first, Rose, tell us about our drink for the evening, please.
Okay, I chose a drink from our book. Since I am in charge of this, apparently, I am going to Rose style, which is to go straight through the book. This is the first recipe in the book. She's on the cover. It's the Frida Kahlo. And so what it is basically a hibiscus margarita. I made hibiscus syrup or hibiscus tea and turned it into hibiscus syrup, and then mix that with lime and tequila, and that's all that it is, and flowers on top.
You actually made the hibiscus syrup? That's amazing.
Yeah.
After brewing hibiscus tea.
That was my activity for last night.
Oh, I love it.
Now, Rose, what are we dealing with here? I have 2, I don't know if you can see, it's a lovely bright reddish pink, but I've got 3 flowers on top. Now, are these flowers I can eat?
They are edible flowers. They will not kill you. I do not know how they taste, so.
You heard it from a lawyer. They will not kill me.
Well, assuming everything is as planned, it will not kill you.
And Rose posted the heads up on the drink and showed you how to make a mocktail version, so everybody can be included here and have a pretty refreshing drink. Let's talk about our topics tonight. We're just going to cover 3 because we've decided to turn the EmPower Hour into a really strong, empowered 45 minutes. So, but no, we know where everybody's time is busy. That's why we want to make this available to you to watch whenever you want to. We still encourage your feedback. Please email us, text us, follow us, and let us know what you want to talk about and what you feel about the things that we're covering. Tonight, we're going to talk about October 1. It's Breast Cancer Awareness, y'all. It's time to get pink. Hey, first of all, let me welcome Carrie. Carrie, welcome.
Hey, sorry I was late. Life of a working mom, always late.
100%, and she's pinked up for us today. We're going to talk about breast cancer awareness. We've got some ideas, you know, how to encourage people to take control of their breast health and make sure that they're doing everything they can to maintain their health. and talk about some experiences we've had with that and some resources available. And then we're going to talk about something that's very personal and that has touched almost all of us. You know, there's only 5 of us in this group, but every one of us has a story on this, and that is pregnancy loss. If you're following the news today, you probably have heard Christy Teigen share her story. And that's something I think has touched all of us, and we could all help support one another in that. And it's a shame some of the experiences you hear about it. We could do better at helping each other on that. So let's bring some light to that. And then the last thing we want to talk about, what I mentioned earlier, civility during this very difficult time with politics. You know, everybody feels strongly in their positions, but that doesn't mean, you know, turn into a bully or denigrate someone who disagrees with you. And like I said, I was very impressed with how the people have handled it on our platform here, the EmPower plant. But just generally, what can we do to keep our blood pressure down these next 32 days or whatever it is, how we can encourage people to become active in their democracy if they've not done that before, how we can keep people from being turned off from voting just because they're seeing some bad behavior and some people that they otherwise, you know, hope to respect. So we hope to model civility in our practice, but we want to encourage it with anybody at any time. So I think those are great topics. But first, let's start with breast cancer. Carrie, you are wearing your bright pink shirt. Tell us what you would like to talk about and share with that.
Well, I mean, I think everybody has lost somebody, a family member or a close friend, unfortunately, due to breast cancer. So I think it is very important for everybody to get checked. Get the girls checked. The machine sucks. I had my first one last year, and it is archaic. It should belong in the torture museum in St. Augustine. It's ridiculous. I swear to God, if men had to put their testicles in this machine, it would never be like this. There would be something luxurious to put their testicles in. But instead, for me, I get to get my itty bitties squashed into this thing, and I'm like, please God, don't let there be a fire alarm that goes off, because I'm not getting out of this thing. It's awful. It's ridiculous. It's ridiculous. But anyway, it's important. I think everybody needs to get checked on a very regular basis. I think breast cancer kills, you know, obviously everybody knows the numbers, but an extremely unfortunate amount of women, and it shouldn't be happening, but we need to get tested on a regular basis.
Yeah, and I think the guidelines for that change sometimes. So now I started getting mine pretty young, but I'm a medical malpractice lawyer. I tend to get overtreated. I get excellent care. And that's a lot of radiation. It's not to laugh at, that's a lot of radiation.
No, and I think self-checks are important. I mean, I think self-checks is the way that most people find out, you know, most people find that they have breast cancer is from their own self-check. So that's how I found that I had something that needed to get checked out a couple times last year. So that's the least we can do.
Yeah.
What do y'all do to try to remind yourselves to do the self-check? Because I know as I'm getting older, my doctor keeps telling me, do it, and I forget, and then I go into for my regular checkup, and she says, are you doing it? I'm always saying, no, I'm not, but I know I need to. Are there any tips or tricks y'all use to kind of remind you?
Do you want to hear something funny? I do it while I'm watching TV. I don't watch TV that often, but like I mess around with my lymph nodes. I'm like Dana, right? I come from a medical malpractice background. I'm like, let's see, how's everything feel today? Check my armpits, and then I just like feel the girls up while I'm sitting there watching TV. The boys are over on the other chairs, and they're like, "You're disgusting." I'm like,
they're going to be rolling their eyes at you no matter what. You might as well get some benefit from it.
Right.
We got teenagers, yeah.
right.
You know what? They're probably going to remind their girlfriends and wives later on because they saw you doing it.
Yeah.
Good point. Good point. Yeah.
I mean, I'm not like naked on the couch. I mean, it's like a t-shirt. I don't have a whole lot to feel around either, so it's not a long process.
No, I think you've got to probably do like your, you know, smoke detectors, you know, when the time changes, change your batteries in the smoke detector. Maybe you know, if there's something else you do once a month or once, you know, whatever time, however often they tell you to do it. I always figure if you're, you know, taking a shower, you're washing everything, you'll, you know, something will pop up, but probably not if it's really, you know, tiny or small and you're catching it first. But so many people, I could tell you, you know, Rose, Carrie, and I have all been medical malpractice lawyers, and unfortunately we have all had breast cancer cases where the allegation was that it was missed and it should not have been missed, and it mattered because this thing grew much further than it would have had it been caught in time. And most of the clients that I knew, they sensed it or knew it about themselves more so. There's very few people I know who had breast cancer who found it through imaging.
Yeah.
But that's just anecdotal. That's don't take that as a statistic by any means, but the
Well, I
self checks do matter.
I do want to say too that it happens at every age. Just because you're in your 20s doesn't mean you escape it. I know women who have had
Yes.
very serious stage 4 cancer of their breast in very, very early ages on up, I've lost friends in their 40s, so 50s,
Mhm.
And don't be afraid of the testing. One of the things, like Carrie said, when she went, it seems kind of archaic, like this can't be state of the art. What are you talking about? And then I went recently after having gone for many, many years, and they did the digital imaging for the first time, which honestly, I thought it was always digital. It obviously wasn't. And then sure enough, I get a call back and I'm like, oh, what is this? And I think it really was just the enhanced imaging that gave them more information to follow up on or such. So now I'm at the thing where I've got to do it in 6 months. I can't wait another year because I'm in this, well, let's monitor and surveil this thing. So the main thing is to not freak out. Don't lose your mind. It happens. And if you've got a good, valid understanding of what they thought they saw, why they're not moving forward with doing anything else right now, why surveillance does sound like a good idea. But with any kind of medical decision, any kind of medical, always ask for the pros and the cons of what they're suggesting. Then ask for alternatives and the pros and cons of those alternatives. Some people like to say, if it was your mother, your daughter, your wife, what would you do? Because most doctors are male. I don't find that relevant. I want the information that I want, and I'll make the decisions on that. I'm not really, affected by how someone would treat somebody in their family. I don't know. But at least get the information and make sure you're making an informed, intelligent decision. In this day and age, I think just that paternalistic top-down, my doctor told me to do it, so I'm doing it. I just don't think that's, first of all, it's not an empowered position, is it? Because you're listening to somebody else tell you what to do instead of making your own decisions. But I also just don't think it's a very informed decision given all the resources we have today about our health. Anybody else wants to contribute something about breast cancer experiences they'd like to share?
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Sorry.
Go ahead,
My
Brenda.
mom is a survivor of breast cancer, and she tested positive for the gene, the BRCA1 gene, and probably that is what killed her mother. Her mother died when she was in her teens. My mom was in her teens, and of some kind of cancer. Like they just didn't have the knowledge about it back then. But so I was tested, and fortunately am negative. But it was sort of a wake up call, and it's sort of when you get that negative result, you're like, one risk factor I don't have, but still the hundreds or dozens of other ones that you do have to look out for. So I think at the time that test was not covered by insurance. We paid for it out of pocket a heck of a lot of money. I think it is now, at least under certain plans. So that's something you might want to consider if you have a history in your family as well.
I agree. And if you are going to a physician who's not listening to you and who's not giving you a half a second and who's cutting you off and who's, you can go to another doctor.
Yeah.
And don't feel bad about that. If you got some kind of food that was inedible, you would send it back. You wouldn't feel like the worst person in the world. If you're getting medical care that just doesn't seem like a good fit, know that you can explore that and you can find some other options. So don't feel like you're trapped by that. If you're not feeling heard and you're not feeling respected. Lori, you had something you wanted to contribute.
Yeah, two things. Breast cancer definitely runs in my family. I had 2 great aunts pass from it, and then 2 of my aunts, my mom is number 9 of 10, so 2 of them had breast cancer. My grandmother had it at the end, and my mom constantly has lumps and things like that she has to have drained. So that's my constant reminder. She hasn't had breast cancer though. Thankful for that. But you touched on something I thought was worth mentioning as well, and that's to be your own health advocate. I feel like it's taken me to over 40 to finally tell the doctor what I want to have happen. And fortunately, I found one that's like, okay, if that's what you want, I'll do it. If you feel that's what you need, I will do it. And so before that, I just did whatever they said because I felt like they were the doctor. You know, this man's just, he's got it, you know, but now I'm so thankful I did because I've been able to catch certain things and I just feel better about the kind of care I'm getting because I'm in control and I'm asking them. And obviously I listen to them and, you know, we listen to each other, but I feel like we have a much better rapport now because of that as well. So just wanted to put that out there.
Yeah, we have some clients, and some of them are clients, some of them are some people who used to work with us, some of them are my friends, but a lot of them ask me to go to their doctor's appointments with them.
Mm-hmm.
I don't have any problem doing that. And I think they ask me because they figure I can make more sense out of what's being told than if they brought just a good supportive friend, you know, because I do have some experience with these cases, and I'm also a little more objective than their mother and their sister and their best friends are, because, you know, whenever you're hearing these things, you have cancer. You know, I'm sure it's like when our clients first come into us and we tell them about how lawsuits work, how claims are filed, how this process goes. I always say, here's my cell phone and I want to give it to you for this reason. You're going to get back home, maybe tonight, tomorrow, whatever. You go, what did she say? What did she mean by that? What was that? Because you're just in a different state of mind. You're not going to receive and retain all of this information whenever your world is upside down. Well, just like in an accident that happens, or just when you're a victim of some sort of horrible thing in your life, it's no different when you get a cancer diagnosis. And so bring someone with you, maybe someone a little more objective, maybe someone from church, if you have a faith family, maybe someone's been through it before. And I tell you this for a couple of reasons, because if you just go online or if you just talk to friends who've had breast cancer, the standard of care for these things changes as they learn more about how to treat things. You know, I had a breast cancer case in 2010. The standard of care was to treat it a certain way back then. We have a client who's undergoing breast cancer now, and I've gone to her, you know, surgical oncologist, her medical oncologist, and radiation oncologist appointments with her, and I learned they've changed, you know, how they treat it now. So, you know, enlist a buddy, enlist someone objective, and a lot of times, if you're, you know, involved in a legal case or you've got a counselor or something, a lot of times they'll be willing to go there with you and just hold your hand. Just it's an hour. You know, how hard is that? So
And take notes. Take notes. There's nothing wrong with sitting there and asking questions and writing things down, because it really is very easy to forget these medical diagnoses and all these medical terminology, you know, that gets spewed out until later. So take notes. There's nothing wrong with that.
yeah, and there's a lot of communication errors. Like I noticed with it was actually one of Tony Fusco's clients, but I went with her to this appointment, and her surgical oncologist was explaining to her these things. And I could tell he felt very comfortable that he was communicating clearly, but I could tell from the way she responded that she wasn't really getting what he was saying. And so I said, you know, may I feel like what you're saying, doctor, to her is this. And so, you know, client, this is what I think he said. And he appreciated that, the doctor did. I think at first he was like, oh my God, she's got a lawyer in here with her, oh my God. But then I think at the end he was very glad, you know, because he had a client who left there very comfortable with his treatment plan, you know, and I think that has to be, you know, reassuring for everybody. So try not to get it. Try to, if you get it, try to do something about it as soon as you can. Don't put your head in the sand. There's a lot of people out here who love you, who will help you get through this. You don't have to go through it by yourself, and avail yourself of all the resources you have. There's a lot of places you can get a mammogram if you can't afford to pay for it. Okay, so contact us, contact 211. That's a great resource anytime you need any kind of help. But there's places you can go if you can't afford a mammogram, but don't put off your health. Almost everything is better if you catch it sooner. So remember that.
And, you know, we'll post a link to 211 and some other places like that as well on our Facebook page. One last question for you. It just popped in my mind and I'm learning about it, is the genetic testing. My mom told me to go and ask my doctor that I would qualify for this and I should do this, but I don't know a whole lot about it. So I was going to see if one of you ladies did it or know about it.
Yeah, I don't. Probably Rose might have some resources, but we can definitely put some resources up on the EmPower Plant website.
Absolutely.
To help everybody, because again, this is Breast Cancer Awareness Month. It touches all of us. You know, if men get breast cancer, and men love women, so it touches everybody's lives. So yeah, that's an excellent point. We want to put some resources out
Yeah.
there for all of you.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Yeah, when I had it, I think it was just, it's a regular like lab test. I think they took some blood and they send it off to be, gene mapped or whatever. And they just look for that malformation or those malformations that create the risk. But it was simple.
Yeah.
And I think with anything, in terms of preventive, I'm not sure what you can do about it, but it seems like paying attention to your health generally is always good, for combating any sort of disease. All right, let's talk next about a very sensitive issue that faces so many women, and it affects men too, if this has occurred to you, and that's pregnancy loss. We are hearing about it today. It's on everybody's radar because Chrissy Teigen, she's got thousands and thousands of followers. She's very big on social media. I believe she's a former model. She's got a husband who works outside the home. I can't remember what he does. She's
Saying
married.
something, some type
He
of
does.
singer.
He's got a little hobby or something. He keeps himself busy. He keeps himself busy while she works. But she's married to John Legend, and from all all you can see, and they do share their lives with us. It seems like a very good, solid, relationship, a very mutually supportive relationship. But she lost a pregnancy today, and so I want to open up to whoever wants to talk about that and talk about any experience they've had with it.
Yeah, before we get into any personal experiences, I kind of wanted to touch on the Chrissy story specifically.
Yeah, please do.
Very out there in the public. I follow her on Twitter and Instagram. I was well aware that, she was pregnant. How's the flour?
I haven't eaten it yet. I will let you know.
Well aware that she was pregnant, that she was having complications. She was posting from the hospital. And that she has a complicated history with fertility. She has always wanted to have a child, never used protection, was told it was going to be very difficult or impossible, but trying and trying and trying. They eventually had their 2 babies with IVF, I think. And then this was a surprise. This was a miracle pregnancy. And then it's the only one where she had issues with it. So that's just got to be devastating. And the fact that she was living this all in public means that, of course, she's got to now announce this. It's going to be found out, like, where's the baby? Where's the baby bump? And then people were still criticizing her on social media. They're like, this happens, and the first thing you do is get out a camera and post about it. And it's horrible. Like, that is, first of all, very normal and a good thing that doctors recommend to take pictures during that time if you have a stillbirth or lose a child. I've had clients who have had that experience, and it's like, this is the only time you're ever going to get to hold that baby. You're gonna it's probably horribly painful right now. It is, I'm sure it is. But it's just horrible to criticize other people's choices, criticize how people grieve, how people react to things. And I think a lot of people who have had personal experiences with miscarriages or stillbirths probably have that same, on a much lower degree. It's not millions of people, but those thoughts, people saying things that are, just whether they're well-intentioned or not, can set you off in a way you don't want to need to be.
Yeah.
Already
The real piling on when you don't need it.
Yeah.
Yeah, and someone that has a choice to say something encouraging, but then goes the direction of criticizing at a time like that. I mean, I don't understand that. I mean, that really shows kind of your character a little bit. It's just, you had a chance to be out there and be like,
There's some psychology to that. And I want to introduce it here. I was gonna mention it after Laura, you shared a story with us if you were willing to do that, but I want to mention it now so we look through these next stories with this filter. Carrie Brown can speak to this. When we go to trial colleges and they teach us how to try cases, one of the things they tell us is if we are plaintiffs' lawyers, we're representing the injured person in a medical malpractice case and it's a delay of breast cancer diagnosis. It's a breast cancer case and we're representing the one with breast cancer. They teach us, do not put women on your jury. Remember this, Carrie? And
Yeah.
you know why?
Of course. Because
you know why?
women.
They are the least sympathetic. They are the least sympathetic to that woman. And you know what they'll do? They'll say, why did she just listen to him? Why didn't she get a second opinion? if a doctor told me that and told me not to do anything and not to take tamoxifen and just wait, I would get a second opinion. I get a third, fourth, fifth opinion. I love my family. I love my husband. I love my children. I am not going to leave my family. I would not be so haphazard and careless with my health. And you're thinking, gosh,
Yeah.
all people, how could she be so judgy? But here's the psychology behind that. It's because their real instincts, the thing that's firing all their cylinders, their fight or flight reason, it's going, God, please don't let that be me. And so the only way they can feel like it would never be me is by judging and distinguishing themselves. It's not really so much judgment as it is, I'm not you. This won't happen to me, because if that happened to me, I would just, I would call a million people. I would sell my house if I have to and go to Canada for therapy or Germany or whatever, because it's so damn scary to think it could happen to you. And so whenever something is really, really hits to the core of womanhood, a lot of times, like breast cancer, being a mother, having a child, you so don't want to be associated and put in that group of those people who are having that experience. You do whatever you have to do to differentiate yourself from it. And a lot of times that comes across as a very judgy, harsh, way of talking to people. And has anybody experienced that through loss of a pregnancy?
I mean, I'll start off just to go ahead and get things going. Yes, I've experienced something similar, but my situation was I was in college. I was about 23 and still in college and in the military. And I accidentally got pregnant and found out, and I was about 6 to 8 weeks along. We don't know how far along they were guessing at the time. And I went several days, and the person that I was with was like, okay, well, we've got money. We can take, we can handle this. We'll do this. So I was getting my mind prepared for this. I was thinking, man, I'm in the military. I'm going to be away from this baby, for this amount of time and this and that. And it was just, I was working full time as well, 40 hours a week, taking a full load, military, all this. It was so much. And then all of a sudden I was losing it. And the emotions then were just crazy. And my partner and my partner's mom were like, well, you were barely pregnant anyway. Aren't you glad? Or you weren't really pregnant. I mean, you were 6 to 8 weeks. So, just seeing tons of stuff like that, like it wasn't even really a baby, or any of this stuff. But in my mind, I'd already had, it was a baby.
Oh, yeah.
And I was preparing for it. And I was going through all these emotions. And it was so painful going through the miscarriage too. And I just remember laying on the bed hurting so bad. And I've never been one for asking for help or anything else like that. But this was one time I reached out and I was like, can you just hold me? And he's like, I'm trying to read my book. Can you keep it down? He's like, you should be happy right now. And he was so annoyed, and just like walks out and it's like, I'm going to go read my book. And if you're going to be loud, stay in here. And I was just, that should have like, ended up marrying this person and I shouldn't have. That's a red flag.
I'm all fired up.
I know, I'm getting all hot too.
I'm getting all violent over here.
And it was just, and then I didn't know what to do. I was just like, okay, maybe I'm being way too emotional, going about my business. Tomorrow I got to get up at 6 and go to school. Then I go to work, school and then work, and then school and then work, and then military in the weekend. And, and I just never really processed it. And this sounds really, I don't want to say silly or something, but I always felt like this little being is just following me around. I'm not the kind of person that really is very spiritual or anything, but that haunted me, and it still does. And now I've learned to embrace it. But I think it was because I never really processed it as well. And so just the negativity around that really shaped, it made it hard for me to really deal with my emotions around it. So
Yeah, not feeling supported. And I don't know this person, but I just want to put this out here because I want us in this group to try to be open-minded and empathetic and see. But I wonder sometimes if the response from your partner wasn't his way of protecting himself from a lot of the emotion associated with, he probably started thinking of himself as a father and what that was going to look like. And whenever, boom, it's not happening anymore, instead of processing emotion, which men are usually not that great at, they just go, okay, that's not happening anymore. And so you're continuing to remind him and bring and make it, you know, relevant or whatever is more than they can handle. They're like, listen, I thought, you know, this is not happening, so now we're moving on. So it's just a lot of times it's a communication problem that men and women experience. It's, and the harder the problem it is that they have to talk about, the worse that gets. So I think a lot of times we impute an intention to bad communication that's probably not there. It's just that's as good as they can do with the resources they have at the time based on how they process conflict in the past. So I don't think that's always a gender thing. I don't think it's mean or being unsupportive. I think it's just that's all he had available to help you with at the time. Maybe, I don't know. It's just one way to think about it. But on your from your perspective, you know, it really would have been nice just to be held, just to say, God, this sucks.
All I needed.
And you hurt. You know, you and I did the same act that resulted in the same consequence, but man, you're paying all the freight on it. And that just sucks. I hate that for you.
And you know what is interesting about that is that Lori and I have been friends for 19 years, and we've been pretty good friends for a long time, and we've shared a lot, but we've never shared this. And what I am taking away from this, I have not had a miscarriage myself, but what I'm taking away from this is, you know, I want women to talk about this stuff more frequently and more openly. Like, it's not a scourge upon us, or it's not a scarlet letter. There's nothing wrong with it. I want, and this happened before Lori and I knew each other, I guess, but I want us to all be open to talk about this more. Like, it's just a regular part of life. And it's a very emotional part that I think we can understand and be empathetic about too.
Yeah.
You know, hopefully anybody watching this will be willing to talk about this with their friends and be open about it, because, you know, maybe if Lori, if some of her friends had come around and talked to her about it, maybe that's where she could have gotten her support from and her empathy.
Exactly.
Mhm.
Exactly.
You know, it would have haunted her if she had been able to talk to somebody about it.
Yeah.
Well, before this, only one other person knew. And so it was because I didn't want to be judged or anything else like that. Or I don't like having a big deal made about myself either. But you're exactly right. I felt judged whenever I would tell people and things like that. And I just didn't want to go through that. I didn't want to have to explain anything.
And when you don't feel supported, you almost feel like, oh, did I do something wrong? Am I just,
Exactly.
am I not worthy of feeling this emotion?
Right.
Should I stuff it down and not experience it?
Exactly.
Yeah, that's.
Well, I want to share my miscarriage story, and just in the spirit of talking about it, because I've noticed more and more people are sharing those stories on social media. A lot of my friends that deal with infertility issues and then miscarriages, and they're putting it out there. And I appreciate that, because it's such a encouraging thing when you go through it, because you think, oh, I'm not alone. Somebody else has been through this. There's someone else I can call to. And, you know, I had a miscarriage in between my first and my second kid. And my family was very supportive. But the first thing I did was I made myself text all my best friends, because I was like, I know I'm going to get in my head about this. And I was like, I just got to get it over with, because I got to tell them, right? Because I've already told them, because, you know, I peed on the stick and then I immediately called them all. So it wasn't like I waited. But I was glad, because then when I got pregnant with Theo, my little one, you know, I had extra fear, just fear that the pregnancy wasn't going to stick, or that something was going to go wrong, because I'd had that miscarriage before. And so it was nice to have the support of my friends that knew that I'd been through that and could help me through it. So anyways, we're here for you if anyone wants to talk.
Thank you for sharing that, Kimmy. And, you know, another thing I've heard from people today was their experience was diminished because, well, you were only 6 or 8 weeks, or you already have a child, or you didn't have to go to the hospital and get a DNC, or you didn't have to deliver a stillborn, or you got pregnant easily. You didn't lose it after every, and it's not a competition of loss, you know? And so, I would just encourage people, kind of like what I said, when you're getting pushed back on something like that and someone's making you feel bad or judged, just stop for a minute and go, I mean, think about it. Does that feel like it belongs to you? No. Doesn't that feel like some of their stuff they're putting on you? And it could be about anything, but whenever the feedback you're getting from people feels a lot more about their issues than it does about the subject matter of what you're talking about, then realize that you just stepped into something that doesn't belong to you. So just extricate yourself from that and get on out. There are plenty of people who won't be triggered by what you're saying in a way that makes them respond in a way that's not helpful to you. So don't get mired in that. Just understand that sometimes whenever you're struggling with something, it could be cancer, it could be a pregnancy loss. And when you get a very strange reaction from somebody else, it's usually about something they've experienced. It's really not about you. So go find the support you need, because there's plenty of it out there. I'll just tell you my little story with it. One time, when I was pregnant with my daughter, I worked in a pretty big law firm, and there were 5 of us women pregnant at the same time, weeks apart. So the camaraderie of that was fantastic, because we were all morning sickness. We were all, craving weird things. We were all ordering, lunch right after we finished breakfast. I mean, we were just doing all the cute pregnancy stuff or whatever. And then sure enough, I mean, statistically, 5 women pregnant at the same time, one of them's going to miscarry, right? And that happened with us. And it was the one who was pregnant first. And so she's miscarried, and she's going to work every day, seeing this camaraderie in this club she's no longer a member of. And of course we dial it back, of course, we try to be sensitive, but we're growing. And and when you've got 5 pregnant women in a law firm, it just consumes the law firm. It's all anybody talks about. Like, oh, don't drink that water fountain, don't eat that, it's contagious. It's just, there's a million jokes. But we had to stop for a minute and say, we're in the middle of the most joyful experience of our lives, but one of our sisters, got left behind on the field, and we need to be, kind of concerned about her. Now, great story. She got pregnant, and she ended up having a baby about 4 weeks after the 4th one had her baby, and it all worked out. But what if it hadn't? Could you imagine that? So it's just, pregnancy loss is very, very common. Those statistics don't lie. But it just goes, if you don't know that many people who've shared their story, they probably just haven't shared their story. It's probably happened to them. So just, try to be mindful that it's more common than you think. And whenever you hear about it, try to be supportive and stay in that person's moment instead of going into your feelings about how you feel like.
Yeah, I think that's why it's so important to talk about, especially around pregnancy, because people do share so much of themselves when they're pregnant. Like, people love to tell all their weird pregnancy stories. I had heartburn, I grew hair on my feet, and then nobody's talking about, what happened.
Your own personal Vietnam.
It goes
right? It's an alien.
It's you're leaving that very supportive and very sharing environment to one of like, I can never speak of this, it's horrible.
Yeah.
We
got a long way to go in being as kind to each other as we can, but that's part of what prompted us to start this forum, is to try to get women to support each other and the people who appreciate our plight. And if you've been married to somebody or partnered with somebody who's gone through a pregnancy loss, I hope maybe you've gotten something from this. Maybe that was a very difficult period for you and you couldn't share the things. Just know that there's no finish line, just any other kind of grief. There's no finish line. It stays with you your whole life. Sometimes it's more prominent, sometimes it's less. Who knows what could trigger it? But, I just hope this gives some people some insight. Before we wrap up today, let's talk about civility. That was demonstrated in the first presidential debate. I think that's the best example anybody could see for civility. No, of course, I'm being facetious. That was a nightmare. That's exactly what not to do to be civil to each other. And we've had, I knew we'd have a little bit of trolls because we've opened our group up to a lot of people. And we had, some people making little snide comments, but we took care of that. But I just want to encourage it. And I want to hear from each one of our panel members about what it means to you, what your challenges are with doing it right now, because we only have, a minute until this election, and then we have to deal with the fallout of the election, Lord help us. What challenges you're facing, and what are you finding that is helping you keep your head on a swivel and not react to everything that could bring out the worst in you? Let me start with you, Kimmy.
Well, I
She's
want to.
mean though. She's just horrible.
She's the
I'm
worst
so
about
relaxed.
instability.
So I wanted to talk about, I watched the debate, and I do not like to hear people yelling at each other. I was like, oh, this is painful. And then the next morning I woke up, and on Facebook, a woman who's running for Leon County Commissioner, had a talk that she was doing, and was actually interviewing somebody else who she had run against in the primaries, another woman who knew more than she did about an environmental topic.
Oh.
So she said, this is a woman I ran against in the primaries, and she is awesome, and she knows way more about this. So
Love
I'm having her on to talk to us, and then they just built each other up, and they shared all this wonderful information about the environment in Leon County, and it was just such a breath of fresh air for me to wake up and to see that civility demonstrated from former opponents. It was awesome.
I love it.
But honestly, for me, I'm staying away from politics. I'm not talking to anybody about it.
Yeah.
That's pretty much where I am now. Yeah.
Go ahead, Lori.
Oh, I was thinking the same thing. But I can't talk about it with anybody anymore, because people that I've been friends with since high school, we can't talk anymore. And I'm like, I want to hear what you have to say. I want this and that and stuff. And they're like, well, you're just wrong. Da, da, da. I was like, I understand, but I want to understand why you've chosen this. And, I just want to understand it. And we've just decided we can't all talk. And that's where we are right now. And I hate that.
I think that's safer than, saying some things you can't unsay.
Yes.
I mean, it's not desirable that we don't talk, but it's preferable to go in nuclear on each other. So if that's the two choices, I mean, obviously do that.
Yeah. Well, we had already reached the nuclear point, unfortunately.
I know.
So we're like, we'll catch back up after the election.
I
Okay.
feel you.
Yeah.
Who else wants to talk about civility, Carrie or Rose?
Well, so I'll go. I mean, I think that was a total shit show, and I think it was worse than Real Housewives. I mean,
Yes.
bitching and the arguing and the interrupting and the yelling was just so distasteful. I can't. I'm ashamed of both of them.
It's not presidential.
You
Not
know,
at all.
It diminished the office.
it totally did, and it leaves our country to be embarrassed in front of the rest of the world, I think.
Yeah.
With respect to civility, I said this last week about Ruth Bader Ginsburg. My favorite thing about her is her relationship and her best friendship with Justice Scalia. And I love reading about that in both of their biographies. I just think it's, in everything I read about her is about that. And I just love that. And for me, what I try to do is talk to the people that I know that I can talk to about differing opinions and differing relationships and philosophies, to learn from them, And I know, Dana, you do the same thing, but the other thing I do is I try to value the relationship more than the opinions.
Right.
My mother has the exact opposite political opinion than I do, but yet we have a very close relationship because, we don't talk politics, but I also, I also value my relationship with her more than my opinions and more than her opinions. And I also know that her opinions are wrong. And so I draw a lot of comfort from that.
Yeah, they're wrong for you, for sure.
Yeah.
I mean, that's all you can really know. Yeah, I mean, you can know what's wrong or right for you, but then, you go to another level, which is what is wrong or right for my country, for my fellow man, for our policy. So it's not just one of those things you go, well, we just disagree. It's very important stuff that we're disagreeing on.
Yeah.
But we're being awfully disagreeable about it. I feel like it's a little better this time than it was last time, other than, and I think it's because Hillary Clinton was very polarizing, and I can say more about that. But yeah, I think it's not quite as bad. And I think it's honestly because they can't be in person with all these in-person rallies where everybody got ginned up. I think COVID has been a blessing for that. And so basically it's just your extremist, warring it out on social media, which is tolerable because you can opt out of that. Whereas whenever they were rallying all the time and there was all this fervor, that was on your news, that was on your news feed, it was constantly being covered. So I think the collective anxiety, I think, is a little less. Plus, we have bigger fish to fry, which is, can we go to work now? Can we live a normal life now? So there's some blessings to COVID. Rose, what are your thoughts on civility?
On civility, I mean, it's important in our profession. You know, they tell us the importance of that you're dealing with opposing counsel and they're a professional just like you, and don't take it personally and don't get upset. For me, on the politics, I don't like arguing politics. It gets me upset and it makes me stressed. And I feel like you're usually not going to change anyone's mind. You're just going to you're both going to repeat your arguments at each other over and over and over again. I feel a responsibility to combat certain things that you see, like if it's something racist or sexist or ableist or whatever. I'm like, look, no, and here's why, and just stop. And I try and be respectful about that, because I'll wake up in the middle of the night thinking about why was I not like wake up in the middle of the night thinking, why did I let that person say that racist thing? But I will also wake up in the middle of the night saying, why was I so like harsh to them? You know, like, so you have to strike that balance. You know, I don't want to regret something that I say while not letting somebody get away with saying something harmful either. And it's interesting on the debate, I actually saw some tweets today about winning the debate and how we talk about debates. And it's like the point of the presidential debate or any political debate, you're not really like arguing a specific topic. You're both there to present your views and your plans and your ideas and present why they're good and why they're better than the other person's plans. But so often the framework and who won the debate is like who struck a blow, who, you know, said this, you know, snarky thing, or who, you know, really just hammered him on.
Burned the hardest.
Yeah. Like that's really not what it's supposed to be.
No.
So can we stop framing it that way?
Yeah. My thoughts on this, I just wanted to share this with you. I might talk about this later, and I'm definitely going to post about it. I did a couple of polls, just informal. And believe it or not, nobody reads the actual question. The question was only this: are you undecided about who to vote for in the presidential election? So that'd be yes or no. And are you undecided about whether to vote in the presidential election? That would also be yes or no. So people took that for me to say, who are you voting for? And then I also put in there, I said, you know, I have an active feed, okay, and I can't, and I'm a lawyer and I'm busy. I can't protect you all by monitoring every comment. When I see something horrible, I'll take care of it, but I can't ensure you that. So if you jump in this Shark Tank that is my post, you may get bitten. And then I said, you know, if you want to know and you want to be heard, you know, private message me if you don't want to get chewed up about it. And so I got a lot of interesting feedback. I haven't read all of it. It's probably about 500 things I've got to troll through right now.
Wow.
But let me tell you a couple of things that were interesting. I learned that I was wrong about my assumptions about people. There are far more people who are literally undecided about who to vote for. I just assumed if you're decided to vote, you are strongly in one of two camps. That was a strong assumption I held. I learned that is not true. Now, this is anecdotal, of course. This is just voluntarily people coughing it up, but I was surprised. And I was surprised about some of the people who had concerns, the concerns women had, concerns men had. People, I would hear, this was surprising to me. I heard several people say, I voted for Obama twice, and then I voted for Trump. There were a lot of, and one thing I learned that is just how polarizing Hillary Clinton was. You know, I always viewed Hillary Clinton from a different context because I've been following her for many, many years. You know, I didn't just learn about her, you know, whenever she decided to run for senator and become Secretary of State and then run for president. I'd known about her, so I didn't see her that way. So to me, it was just crazy that people would see her the way that so many people did. And I'm talking about other women. So I was surprised by that. Someone would vote twice for Obama and then choose Trump over Hillary Clinton. I found that interesting, and I heard that several times. Another thing I heard was, some people wanted to vote straight the ticket. That's obvious. You know, a lot of people vote straight ticket, but the reasonings for it were strange. When they would vote, when they didn't know anything, that was kind of interesting to me. They said, I don't know anything about that, but I just voted this. there's a lot of things, but my bottom line, my punchline is this, is I made assumptions that I don't think I was right about. And I felt like I'm pretty dialed in and pretty woke and pretty educated, but you know, you don't know everything. And when we get so polarized over politics, we just start looking at somebody who doesn't agree with us as the other, and we start assigning all these terrible characteristics to them that we don't respect, that distinguish them from us. I don't know, maybe to feel better or to feel, you know, justified in your position. But what I learned was if we could just find a way to talk to each other and be heard and listen with an intent to hear and learn, not an intent to respond, we can increase civility, we can increase the discourse just generally. So I would encourage everybody to maybe rethink some of the assumptions you have about people who you feel are different than you are. I want to go around one more time and hit from everybody and just say, do you have anything summary, anything you want to share for the week, any encouragement, any follow-up, and anything else you want to talk about? Let me start with Lori. Turn your mute off. There you go. Is Lori there?
I'm there. Yep. So you guys are kind of going in and out, so let me know if I'm going in and out right now too.
I hear you strongly.
Good, good, good. So anything I want to follow up on? I want to make sure we've got the resources out there for everybody, and I want people to respond if they have any questions about anything or any comments about what we talked about. Feel free to share your story if you want to. You don't have to, but we'd love to hear from you, and look forward to kind of bringing more awareness to breast cancer this month as well. So look for more for that.
Thank you, Lori. All right, let's hear from Kimmy. You have anything to wrap up or anything you want to share?
Yeah, so this isn't on topic, but yesterday I just had this awesome day where 3 of my clients just kind of randomly chose to reach out to me, and they really empowered me. They were just like, I just wanted to call you and tell you how much I love you, you know, and that doesn't happen a whole lot, right? Like we provide a service, and you know, my clients and I have great relationships, but I just had 3 women call me in one day. I don't know, something with the moon, I don't know. And I tell you what, it made me feel so great. So I just want to challenge everyone to, when you appreciate somebody, reach out and let them know, because it really matters. And I'm just on cloud 9 this week because of those ladies that all coincided in one day. So it just was like superpower day for me. So that's
You
it.
never know what one little word or one little, you know, note of encouragement, some email, a text from someone, it can change their whole day. You know how you start out a day, you're like, oh, this day sucks. And then somebody will say something, just changes your whole trajectory. It just makes you feel better. Oh, I call it an appreciation challenge. I think Kimmy wants us to do an appreciation challenge. Find something you appreciate and show it. I love
Let's put it on Rose's bingo.
Instead of a free
apple
spare.
for it. Can we switch an apple for it?
Switch an apple for
I'm like,
empower
it's
somebody else.
sponsored by the Apple Growers Association. Rose, what are you thinking about a wrap up for today?
Well, what Kimmy just said actually reminded me of some good advice that I heard that I haven't followed, but I think I should, and think probably people should, which was that when you get those messages, those like compliments, save them. It's like you get an email or a text or a letter or a call, make a note of it and save them and put them somewhere so that when you're not feeling so great, you can read them and be like, you know what?
Brilliant.
Think I'm cool. Because you are sometimes anyway, even if you don't feel like it all the time. So I think that's the thing to do. And yeah, I put that self-care bingo up on the EmPower plant page, and I just thought that was a fun thing. I got it in a planner. I was like, well, we were just talking about self-care. Let me put it up. So if anybody actually goes apple picking, I want to hear about it.
Drop
Yeah,
those
you know
details.
Yeah, and if you have any little suggestions like that, that's cool. Any kind of self-care stuff. And if any of you who would listen to this, you want to be heard on a particular topic, you say, you know, would that have a particular area of interest in, you know, self-care? This is what I do. We would love to have guests, you know, to come on and talk about these things. So let us know what topics you want to hear about, what you want to talk about. And then if there's somebody who wants to be heard, or if you want to have some other forum, just let us know. We want this to be an empowering place for you to get what you need and feel encouraged in your life. Carrie, what are you thinking about a wrap up?
Okay, so best story on civility ever. I tell the story all the time, but for those that don't know, Dana and I used to try cases against each other. And even though we were in the courtroom and we were going to depositions on opposite sides, I was representing the doctors that she was suing. I think we had one of those breast cancer cases too against each other.
Yeah.
We developed a really close friendship. And then Rose came into the picture, and it would be Dana and Rose versus Carrie all the time, depositions, getting ready for
It's
trial.
very simple. Don't you dare.
Rose hated me. She had daggers coming out of her eyes at me. At least Dana and I had a friendship at that point.
Yeah.
But you know, we formed, I think, an amazing friendship and now an amazing partnership through, you know, being on opposite sides of the table.
Yeah.
Obviously professionally, but you know, you can do it civilly and professionally, and you can disagree and still have a wonderful relationship. And then luckily, you know, I came over to Rose and Dana's side, and now we get to work together and be on the same side. But I mean, to me, that's the ultimate story of disagreeing and yet forming, you know, wonderful friendships and partnerships out of that.
Yeah, I totally agree. Okay, so that's going to be it for today. Let us know what topics you want to hear about. Follow us. You can follow us. We have a Facebook page, Fasig Brooks Facebook page. We're on Instagram, Twitter, LinkedIn, but we also all have personal pages. I'm Dana Brooks. You can find me anywhere. Dana Brooks. I think it's Dana N. Brooks on Instagram, but reach out to us, follow us. If you want to see how we handle our lives or engage in us on a personal level or a more intimate level, reach out to us, follow us, and let us know what you want to get from the EmPower Plant and the EmPower Hour. And we want you to have an empowered week and join us again next time. Thank you.